up, and we have a microphone set up for questions. So if you would like to line up at the microphone.
I wear this hat very rarely. I keep the tag on it. My wife got it off of Instagram for
Last time we had a Zoom meeting, you had it on, though.
Well, yeah, sometimes I'll wear it grocery shopping. You know, in case people want to ask questions about the show, you know.
It's like a nice golf hat.
Yeah, yeah. No,
I thought it was because he had a swelled head, and it needs something to fit that.
It is filled with like
It's something to
8
fit
pounds of
the
perspiration.
big brain in behind Aqua Teen Hunger Force. You can't fit a brain that size in a normal hat.
Wasn't that the name of the trivia guy?
Wayne the Brain McLean.
Wayne the main brain McLean.
Seth MacFarlane.
When you're blocking the movie for people, the person behind you asks you to take it off, and your head is just shaped the same.
Listen, I can wear whatever I want in Oppenheimer, okay?
What was
the third act sucks anyways. I mean, how you going to build a third act after you already bombed Nagasaki and Hiroshima? That's the biggest thing that ever happened in the world history. And then we got to sit through 45 more minutes of Iron Man talking? No, sir. No, sir.
What was Carl's order in that episode? Do you remember what his food order was?
I don't remember. I remember I asked for 80 wings. Keep the wings coming. I'm going to be farting blood over here.
That one deserved to live on.
He was laughing at the time. I was laughing at the time, but I was crying later.
So I find it hard to believe that this woman on stage with us has a child in college. Can you guys believe that?
Well, this panel's not about me.
This woman has a child in college. Look at her. She looks like Tinkerbell up here. She's got a kid in college, man. Gorgeous. Looking like Rogue with the streak in her hair. Got this streak in her hair, Rogue from X-Men. But enough about her. This is all about you, Richmond. Give yourselves a round of applause. We here to serve. The Aqua Teens in the house, yo, and you know we in the house. -1. They wouldn't let the voice of Master Shake on the plane. So they told him that he had to keep his smart-ass remarks in L.A. for another night. So we'll see him tomorrow.
He'll be here tomorrow, yes.
I'll tell a quick Dana story.
Oh, yeah, let's talk about Dana while he's not here.
Let's talk about Dana while he's gone. But, like, his kid and my kid go to the same school in Los Angeles. And I've mastered the valet line. Any parents in the audience have valet lines that they deal with? No, you don't have that in Richmond? It makes sense. It's Richmond. And but we would my son and I, before we did the valet line, we would have to walk up a hill to school, and Dana would always drive by us, open the window, and he'd scream at my son. He'd be like, "Hey, Tony!" And it would give me PTSD. It made me feel like Master Shake was doing a drive-by. But yeah, so every morning Dana would scream at me, and I wouldn't see it coming. Short Dana story. We miss him. Give it up for Dana Snyder, everybody.
By the way, don't tell him I told you this, but I just discovered that he's on Duolingo. So I'm going to give you his Duolingo thing, and you can follow him.
Really?
And follow his pursuit of grade school Spanish.
I was going to ask what language.
Mastering grade school Spanish.
Are you really
I
gonna give
am
it to
vaudeville is his Duolingo. Don't tell him, but anyone who does Duolingo out there, please follow him.
Has there been
and high five him.
Has there been a Master Shake in like Spanish episode or anything that has to do
No,
with that?
but that's.
I think that's maybe a new focus. If you're given another chance.
You need to give it another chance. You can't break another phone.
Do a whole episode in Spanish. That'd be good.
But there is one episode of Aqua Teen that Max won't show. And I think we us up here, we know which one it is. It's Shake Like Me. Shake gets bitten by a radioactive black man and turns into Jamocha Loca Chakalaka Mocha Lotta Shaker, the black version of Shake, and he thinks he's black and all this and that. So people always ask me, they say, what did you think of that episode, Carey? What's your thoughts on that? And
Yeah,
I'm like,
what are your thoughts?
it's just like any other episode. I did my lines, I waited on my check, went home, waited on my check. That was it. But, funny side note to the story, I walked into Radical Access to record some stuff one time. One of the animators was working on that episode, and he had the black version of Shake up on his computer screen. And I walked up behind him and just said, "Hey, man, what's going on?" He turned around like it was a kid. You know how you're a kid and your parents walk in on you when you're watching porn?
I don't know what that's like.
Ma, Dad, I'm not doing anything. There's nothing to see here. And he did exactly that. And I'm like, "Well, what you doing? What you doing? What's going on?" You know what I'm saying? He thought I was going to be offended, I guess, by seeing the black version.
You didn't know
Shake with the
how
thick
chill
lips
you were
and all that.
about racist white people.
Well, you know, I don't know many racists personally. At least they haven't said it to me, to my face, that they were racist. Usually people will show you eventually. But, you know, we're not here to talk about all of that. We're here to talk about MC Chris and his latest tour.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well done, Carey. That was a nice turnaround.
Tell us the dates and
Good
the
segue.
cities you're
Yes,
going to
I
be
will now read off all
performing at MC
53
Chris.
of my tour dates this summer. Actually, I am going on tour this summer. You can find the dates at mcchris.com. I'll be playing the Camel in Richmond. You guys know this place?
Oh.
Come see me at the Camel this summer. And I will be rapping I Want Candy the whole set. Just that song over and over again. That's all I got, actually. That's all I know. What to do.
What about guitars or bass and none of the stuff?
I can't afford
none
it.
of the
I
rock
can't
music?
afford a band. I don't know how these bands.
But MC Chris, aren't you doing a show here as well?
Oh my God, I am. Thank you,
Let's
Lisa.
talk
That's
about
why
it.
you get the big bucks.
Yep.
I am performing it on the Hero stage tomorrow night at 8:30. And again, it will just be me doing I Want Candy over and over and over again.
And now you just lip sync it though, right?
I
You
don't. I
even
do
do
not.
it.
I have not. All my larynx are broken.
You don't even do it. I mean, you get paid extra
I don't
to
come
actually
out there.
do the voice.
I don't even use the MCP Pants voice. I'm like, oh, hey, what's in the heezy? I don't do it. My son asked me, he's like, how come you're not like Gary Anthony Williams? Why aren't you screaming your character and being funny? And I'm like, because if I start acting like MCP Pants in public, someone's going to tackle me. But I'll do it for you. Are you ready? Here we go. Oh, man, I broke my voice. You know the thing about MCP Pants is it's my bad Chris Tucker impersonation. And I saw, what was it?
That's crazy because we did reach out to you after we got rejected by Chris Tucker. And
Are you serious?
no.
Why can't you be serious just then?
No.
I remember I saw, what was the movie he made with Jackie Chan? What's it called? Rush Hour. I was thinking Money Train was in my head, which is very similar in theme. But I remember I saw Rush Hour in Philadelphia, and it affected me in a strong way. And I don't know, I didn't realize I had Chris Tucker in me, but I did. Man, Jackie Chan, you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth? It sounded exactly the same thing. It was the exact same thing as MCP Pants. And so that's actually my only skill is that I can do a bad Chris Tucker. And now Chris Tucker is a bad Chris Tucker.
Is Chris Tucker aware of this? Is he aware of this?
Yes,
He is.
He and I had a heart-to-heart on Epstein's Island. No, I'm kidding. I had to tell that joke, and I'm sorry.
We have a question
you.
in the crowd,
Thank
right?
you.
Are you standing up
Like
to
an
ask a
idiot.
question? Come on up to the microphone there. Hi, what's your name?
AJ,
Hi, AJ.
and to all of you who has been doing this for years, and with the
Reboot?
yes, that, and me being a longtime fan of your show, how you managed to get away with some of the episodes of some of the darkest humor you could possibly imagine, like dicks and boobs for eyes. And,
Well, if you'll recall in the Dick episode, which aptly titled is Dickisode, where dick-like creatures try to cut off dicks and create a spaceship out of dicks to go to planet Dick. I hundreds of severed dicks. But we didn't air it that way, you'll remember. Because we weren't allowed to. But on Max, I think we have the uncensored dickisode, featuring just hundreds of semi-erect, tumescent dicks.
Oh, God.
I don't
That's
know
what
how
I.
you
That's
know.
what I always say to people who want to introduce someone that never seen Aqua Teen to Aqua Teen Hunger Force. Start with Dickisode.
Oh, God.
Follow that up with Hand Banana.
Oh, God.
And if they aren't hooked after that, then there's no hope for them. That's what I say.
I mean, sexual assault is not funny. Sexual assault's not funny at all.
It is when it happens
It's
to you,
definitely
Carl.
not funny when it happens to Carl.
That's when it's especially funny. Remember Frylock cut your dick off?
By a dog.
That Wongburger wouldn't get it? Frylock solved the problem by cutting Carl's dick off before Wongburger could cut it off.
What we were trying to do is win an Emmy, and
Yes,
we
they
tried
still
to come
haven't
out
called.
with a prestige
We're waiting.
episode. And
Hey, if Godzilla can win an Oscar, we can win an Emmy, right? That's what's up.
Yeah, I have
There's
a
hope
question.
for Aqua Teen yet.
What are some of the things that were rejected? Some of the ideas that they said absolutely no.
oh, we used to print out. We talked about making a DVD extra of all the standards and practices notes. I'm trying to remember one of the, but they would always obsess about, like, the word asshole. They would always obsess about the word hole and not ass. And I was like, does the hole make it real for you? Does it make it just so real for you? You know, it's like, and fecal matter,
I think
which I feel ashamed that I fought for. But they
You're
never
a
liked.
hero.
They never liked that fecal matter was brown. They were very insistent, and I was like, have you looked in your toilet recently? I'm sorry, guys. I don't.
Did you ever like come home from a day of work of being rejected and your wife's like, what's the matter? Why are you making a Manhattan? And you're like, God damn it, they wouldn't let me make the dicks. Like I want to make them.
I asked for a spaceship full of dicks, and this is what I get.
They just don't respect you. No, honey, that's not it. They have a thing about dicks.
They'll give me ass, but no holes.
That's why you see a lot of
give me the hole.
dubs in movies on television. They would say ass hat.
Yeah.
You ass hat, and you know the line is asshole. So it must be a universal thing. They
Everybody
say
in this
that.
room is nodding like, that's why I came to this panel, is to learn
Talk
this
about
stuff.
ass hats. You ass hat, you. Yes, that's very accurate.
What do we have to talk about on this panel?
Well,
Let's see.
we have questions.
Next question.
Yeah,
Does
they're
anyone know
There's
how...
another question
I have a question
coming
for
around.
y'all.
Yeah.
Does anyone know how old Meatwad is? 59. I am approaching 50. Yes, I'm in my middle ages.
Meatwad's wondering if all the good shapes are behind him.
Yep. Igloo and hot dog. Those are the two.
Those are the days.
Those are my favorites. Those are the OG shapes.
Hi, what's your name?
Name's Miles, and the question is for Carey Means. Frylock is a beloved character from Aqua Teen Hunger Force. What was your approach to bringing this character to life, and how did you develop his distinctive voice?
My approach was simple. I was an actor who needed work, and I auditioned for the part in the break room of my day job. I was the guy who used to call your house in the 90s and go, what do you think? In 10 years, everyone will have a cell phone? Somewhat likely, not at all likely, very likely. So I was the guy you would hang up on at dinner when you were trying to eat. Said, this guy keeps calling the house asking us about cable. What do you think? In 10 years, everybody be able to fast forward, rewind, and pause live TV? Now you can do that, right?
Would you ever would you ever watch streaming? Does that sound like something you do? Yes?
Who?
No?
I have a question. Was there overlap in this job and Aqua Teen, and did you ever call somebody's house and go, honey, I think this is Frylock asking me if I'm interested in buying a cell phone?
This was before Frylock when I was doing the surveys, though, because I was doing bumps for like Pokemon, Dragon Ball Z, stuff like that. I was the announcer for the original run of Samurai Jack. I was the guy to come on and tell you, on the next Samurai Jack, Jack gets into this, though, that, and the other. And a production assistant at the time, he was a production assistant then. He's probably a CEO over there now. His name is Larry Morris. I know his name so well because I went to high school with a kid named Larry Morris. But my Larry Morris was more like Spicoli on Fast Times at Ridgemont High. But that's another story. So this guy heard me doing these spots for Samurai Jack, and he ran to Matt Malero and Dave here. It was like, you got to hear this Carey Means guy. He'd be perfect for this show that you're doing about food products. Would you?
But, you know, you added a lot to the character, too. It wasn't just sort of the deep voice, you know, and we were like, we need an African-American voice here. We had a guy we had cast somebody else. We cast somebody else as Carl, too, by the way. And that guy was just so terrible in the booth that we...
Really? Tell us his name.
If I could remember it, I would. I would, because he talked
Paul
about Shakespeare in the part.
Giamatti.
Yeah. But you brought a lot of ad-libs and stuff, and that's what we were looking for, just something, you know, we're always looking for people who can...
Ad-libs my ass. I read the script for Rabbit verbatim in the break room. No, Meatwad, don't get the jam box. And I could hear Dave and Matt on the other end of the phone, the conference call people. Back in the days, there was this thing called fax machines that used to make this weird noise, and all these ones and zeros would come over and form letters and numbers. So I'm standing in the break room of the day job I was telling you about, where I do the phone surveys. I'm like, no, Meatwad, don't get the jam box. And I hear him and Matt just cracking up, guffawing, laughing, rolling on the floor. And I was like, what is this crap? I'm not going to get this. You know, just the rule of voiceovers is you do the audition and you forget about it. Because if you dwell on it, you lose your hair.
But I think everybody that's cast in the show, and you, Carey, and Chris, and Dana, I mean, there are slightly heightened versions of yourself in those characters.
Absolutely.
Don't you
Slightly.
think? Slightly,
Slightly.
yes.
Slightly.
Slightly heightened.
But I mean, we sent Chris our version of I Want Candy, which was terrible, you know. It had, I mean, the ideas in there, and then Chris just completely rewrote it and changed it and added all of his flourishes to it. I mean, we could not have cast somebody else to do that, you know.
You could have.
Yeah,
But I'm
it
glad you
would've sucked.
didn't.
It
I'm
would've
glad
sucked.
you didn't.
And the same with-
20-year-long career, thanks
And the
to
same
you,
with
sir.
Carey. I mean, Carey, you know, Carey is Frylock in a way. You know, he just gets in the booth and he's Frylock, you know.
I can't imagine, just because the character is so serious in a way, although he's got lots of funny bits and lots of funny things that happen. But I mean, if he wasn't in the show, in many ways, he's kind of like that one dose of reality that's in that universe.
I wouldn't say it's grounded, but he just barely tethers it to the earth.
I mean, he is a floating box of French fries.
True that.
Do you
But-
eat French fries?
Yes.
Do you ever feel like you're eating a smaller version of yourself?
Yes.
Okay.
And it's delicious.
Yeah. Oh, I love this.
Have you ever been approached by a fast food company to market their product?
No, I'm still waiting. Waiting to hear from someone who wants me to be a spokesfry.
When Boost Mobile happened, that was like the
Boost
best
Mobile.
thing in the world, wasn't it? You were so happy.
You know how much
finally got
hate
to-
mail we got
you-
from the
Not
Boost
because of the
Mobile?
money, but because you got to like make a like
The Aqua Teens
an
have
ad.
sold out. Boost
By the
Mobile,
way, that
what
was,
a
by
cash
the way,
grab.
that was Grammy Award-winning Killer Mike played the Boost Mobile phone. Yeah, but yeah, we told them, we were like, that was back in a time when people got all worked up about selling out, and now nobody cares. every
You're not selling out. They're
Yeah.
like, what's your
Now
problem?
folks can't wait to sell out.
Yeah, because there's no other options. But But yeah, we were like, yes, we want to sell out to an actual product and make actual money. And then we didn't get any of the money, of course. The network did. We did get a lotion kit from, I guess our skin looked dry. We got a lotion kit from them for Christmas, Boost Mobile, which Matt promptly FedExed back to the address.
Boost Mobile Lotion.
Yes.
By Fabergé.
Okay.
Yes, in the
There
Scrubs.
we go. Hi. What's
Next
your name?
question,
Does someone look
player.
faint up here?
My name is Jack. I'm very curious. Chris, I don't know if you probably remember. One of your characters' shticks was how they would make a lot of these really ridiculously elaborate and very unnecessarily complicated plans. Were any of those ad-libbed or?
No, like Dave, when Dave like describes his show, and when I moved to Atlanta, Dave and I became friends, and we go out and drink. And when Dave would describe an episode, I always got the vibe he was like entertaining himself. He was like, but what happens is this thing happens, but it's not where you think it's gonna go. It's gonna go someplace different. And what ends up happening is this. And so he would always explain things to me in that way of kind of, you think it's this, but it's this, and then here's the super weird flip on it. And it was always like something where Dave was kind of just entertaining himself, and I think that's how he made hundreds of Aqua Teen episodes. I don't know if you got to 200 or not, but
No, not yet.
a lot of episodes. But I think he was always just kind of like, starting a kind of a grounded place, and then always like, how weird could you get it? How could you heighten it? Because with Aqua Teen, it's such a strange, weird show. It's like, where do you go? But he would always just be like, and he's trying to get kids to bring him candy so he can hook them up to lawn furniture, and so he can power a drill so he can get into hell. And he would just explain this to me, and it was always like, I don't know if it really happened in a bar or something, but he would describe these things to me like he was just kind of telling me like a Shaggy Dog story. But he was always laughing while he was telling it because he was entertaining himself. But I never came up with the stuff. He'd always just ask me to like add izzles into the middle of words. Can you put an izzle in there? Yes, I can. I can do that for you. One time he came into my room with the frat aliens. I don't know if that's their exact name, but he came into the room where I would do different things for the show. Like I'd cover the house in blood for the Danzig episode, or put the house in the future. And he would come into the room and he'd be like, "I need some things a frat guy would say." Like I would know. Like I'd ever be accepted to a frat. But the one line I gave Dave was, "My dad works at a dealership." Because I grew up in Libertyville, Illinois, which was just filled with car dealerships. And so the guys that would bully me probably had a dad in my imagination.
In fairness, I was in a fraternity, and there was a guy in our fraternity whose whole claim to fame was that his dad owned a candle factory, and whenever he was stumped for something to say to a girl or anyone else to impress, that was his go-to. And it was just like, how fucking vacant can you be? Like my dad totally owns a candle factory. And I was like, what does that even mean?
It burned
But
down.
yeah, to answer your question, no ad-libbing. A lot of these things were in the script.
Locked.
I mean, with Master Shake's lines, because I would see the editing of shows, like almost every line was kind of rewritten in some way. Like he would do like 5 takes for every line or so, and ad-lib, and I would ad-lib a lot, and Carey would ad-lib a lot. Everyone would ad-lib a lot, but there was a lot of like the weird plot points, like where the plot goes. That was always in the script ahead of time. We were never ad-libbing the plot. We were ad-libbing the delivery of the lines.
Yeah, because they always seemed so, like the way you guys handled everything, as ridiculous as the situations were, everything was just dealt with so mundanely and, grounded.
It was always like the show was always like making fun of the whole concept of what do you do when you get this guy and they live together, which is like every pitch. So many pitches have been rejected that were the exact thing that the Aqua Teens were, but they were food products, so that's what kind of set them apart.
Yeah, I mean, there was never like a Dan Harmon story circle to it or any sort of like really. I mean, I think we told our own version of stories. People would say we didn't have stories at all, which I was like, no, of course we have stories. I mean, just because they didn't take very long to come up with doesn't mean they weren't stories. But it was very much a not how everyone else in the world makes shows. And if you've ever like done a voice on someone else's show, they'll over-direct you and they'll tell you to do it like 12 different ways because the voice director doesn't even write on the show and doesn't produce the show. And so they want to make sure their ass is covered. So they're like, we'll do one sad, we'll do one happy, we'll do one really loud. And, but they want it dead to the script. And we were always like trying to change it in a way that, because we were already bored with it by the time we got in the booth.
There'd be like a rhythm to recording. You would always be like pitching lines during a read, and you really wouldn't want to talk or discuss the line. You just like say what I just said, then you do it, and then you come up with another line. So it wasn't always the actors coming up with ad-libs. Sometimes it was Dave coming up with ideas on the spot for what he wanted us to say.
But some people weren't comfortable doing that.
Who wasn't?
Oh God.
Paul Giamatti.
Yeah, he refused to sign the contract after the session, and no. But we tried to find comedians, not voiceover actors per se. We just tried to find funny people, and hopefully they would make the line better, and then we would get the credit for writing it.
So long ago, it was like comedians that were on Comedy Central, that were
there were
like I remember I showed Ned who Pat Oswalt was, and I'm like, watch, he's doing jokes about TiVo. It's so funny, and I remember showing it to him, and then you guys used him a little while later, but it was always about who was coming up on the scene. It was very rarely about like some elaborate get or some. Although Tom Cruise is one of the big ones.
I felt like we got like David Cross like in episode 6, and that was like a big deal for me because I was such a Mr. Show fan.
Yeah, it was like personal heroes, but it wasn't like the biggest
not
people.
household names.
But you'd go see I mean, we saw them together live. Like we'd go see David Cross live, and these are people that were touring because a lot of '90s comics were like playing big venues, would come to Atlanta. We'd go see them, like Todd Barry.
Yeah, Todd Barry.
I think the trick to it is you find somebody that has that stage experience, whether it be a comedian or a theater actor, like Kevin Conroy, rest in peace. He was a theater actor. He was a stage actor. When he auditioned for Batman, he knew nothing about doing voiceovers, which was crazy because he's the perfect Batman, and they fell in love with him immediately. But I tell people that all the time, do some stage work, do some improv, do some theater work, even if it's local community theater. You got to know how to play them cheap seats in the back. They got to be able to hear you without a microphone. If you can do that, make somebody feel something by the end of the night, then you can do almost anything. Absolutely.
Were you thinking about the time we saw Todd Barry and I was heckling him?
No, I get emails from Todd about once a year.
Oh, you do?
Yeah. He's like,
I was on his podcast.
You got any more voiceover jobs?
Hey, cool.
Cool, man.
The day I saw Todd Barry perform, who did Todd play on the show?
Romulox.
He was Romulox. I went and saw Todd perform the day I quit C-Lab, and I got really drunk that afternoon, and I heckled him the whole show and just screamed Pootie Tang at him because he was in the movie Pootie Tang. Dave took me outside, and he's like, I want to hear what he's saying. It was one of those Big Brother, go home moments. But anyway, I digress. Next question.
Yes. Ooh, the line grew. Hi, what's your name?
Hi, my name's Nathan. I'm just wondering, at what point did you realize you had something that was, going to take off and stick around and not just a one-and-done season kind of thing?
I like this question because Matt Malero and I had blinders on. I mean, I definitely did. Like, I remember coming home from the Schooly D theme music record and just playing it for my then girlfriend, now wife, like at 2 in the morning. So excited. Was excited about the show. I remember playing her the pilot, and she told me years later, she was like, I was real worried about your future. and at that time I was like, this is the best. This is going, like I wasn't thinking about us being successful or any. I was just so excited about how funny this was to me and to Matt, and excited that we got to do this for a living, not thinking that most people don't get to do it for a living, and most people, if they do get to do it for a living, they get to do it for the pilot, and then it gets killed, and so many stories of shit just getting needlessly thrown away or destroyed, and I felt like we just sort of forced it up there through willpower and through goodwill that we had earned through years of writing and making Space Ghost Coast to Coast in the building, and they needed it, and it was cheap to make, so it's like, why not make 6 of these? We started making the second one before we were done with the first one. No one had given us approval to make a second episode. All right, that's the type of thing that you should get fired over. We should have gotten fired. And our boss told us as much. He was like, I should fire your ass. And then like a week later, he was like, all right, I'll let you make 6. But it wasn't, in the early days of the block, and it was, as much fueled by Family Guy as anything, but, we still had the late night shows of C-Lab and Aqua Teen and Birdman and Brack Show, and those were all, Birdman was a little bit heavier duty, but those other 3 shows were made out of garages and tiny offices for no money. And I just remember coming into my office, and Lazo, our boss, who helped create the block and all that, slid the ratings under my, I don't know what the numbers meant. They don't mean what they mean nowadays, obviously, but he had highlighted the number that we had gotten that night, and he wrote, holy fuck, with a Sharpie, and I was like, cool.
Nice. There was a time where you had to make, I think that one of the last seasons I was in William Street in the office, you guys had to double up, you had to make 2 at the same time, and it's something where you never did it again because it was so hard. We had to make 30 episodes in one season.
We made 24 episodes in a season, but that's 2 writers, 2 guys, me and Matt, writing everything, producing everything. That's crazy. It's just crazy, but it was a great.
But yet it was a golden age of Aqua Teen. You pounded out.
Yeah, it was fun.
Some genius episodes. And I remember I was working another job where I was an appointment setter at a phone center. And we were doing the 2 episodes at a time. At that time, so I had to go to the studio at 8:30 in the morning, record the 2 episodes, then spend the half of my day at my job. And I was still one of the top producers on the floor. And my boss was like, I think this voiceover thing is interfering with your work here, Carey. And I was like, oh, so let me tell you like this, boss. I'm supposed to decide between this job and doing Aqua Teen, my career. You want me to decide between the 2? Guess what I'm going to decide? I told him just like that. And then he fired me. So. One of these years, I'm going to write a book. It's called I Fired Frylock. And I have seriously lost some jobs because I do the voice of Frylock. I think it was just haterism and jealousy. It was like, oh, you doing this show on Adult Swim. Well, I'm going to make sure he don't work here no more.
Well, nobody got it in the beginning. Nobody
liked it.
Nobody knew what it, until before Futurama and Family Guy, in Atlanta, I felt like we were kings among men, but the rest of the world, it wasn't until I toured in 2005 that I began to see that there was
a real small group of
appeal.
Fans, and we kind of still do when you think about it in perspective. There's this little niche of people who love it. They have to turn all their friends and relatives onto it, and most of their friends and relatives are like, nah, until they see Meatwad do something cute. That gets the chicks involved and the moms and
what I see a lot now these days are people are like, you are my childhood, because I guess a lot of people started watching this when they were 13. Not like they were supposed
Or
to be
younger.
in college, but they were supposed to be
Or
13.
younger,
So by
absolutely.
the time they got to the age where they started doing bong hits and getting drunk, it was just like a match made in heaven. You're like, I love these characters, and this is actually, you're supposed to watch this while you're fucked up. I never realized that.
Yeah, people would ask, how do you come up with the idea? Y'all just like get, I was like, we get, what?
Yeah, I love
No, yes,
telling people.
I go to my job at Turner and I immediately spark up in the parking lot.
I was high all the time.
Well, maybe
I
they
was the
meant,
only
like,
person that
drink a
was high
milkshake.
at work. Everybody else was just like going to church on Sundays. Literally, like most of the staff at William Street, they're all like God-fearing men from Florida.
I will say one other thing though. When we pitched the show with drawings that I made on basically cocktail napkins, and we didn't know how to pitch a show, and I remember the moment when everyone looked away from us and started looking down to their Blackberries to basically email around the table, are you listening to this bullshit? And then we left, and our boss was like, I don't like it, but I'll let you make one. And I remember a year later, the guy who did ad sales for Adult Swim said, you really pulled that meatball shit out of the fire, didn't you? Like right next to me at a urinal. And I was like, what? He's like, yeah, you try going to the ad buyers with that as your superstar.
But what's funny about this show is that, like, at the time, they're all like, what are you talking about? But then it became the standard for all comedy. Like, everything became weird. Everything became strange. Like, that was where marketing was going. That's where advertising was going. That's where media and content was going. Everything changed. And a lot of times I think it has a lot to do with Tim and Eric, but it really, that sense of just things being strange and things being weird, which comes from Space Ghost and from the work that Lazo and Dave and Matt did early on, like that became everything. In my opinion, it became like everything.
I mean, I'm not going to take credit for, but it's like all of Adult Swim definitely informed the last Super Bowl commercial break every time, because you're spending $8 million for 30 seconds. You're like, all right, what's going to get somebody to say, oh, well, let's try a unicorn that's got arms as long as Texas, and he's trying to bathe with Old Spice.
It's got to be, I mean, if I was you, I'd be feeling like this is weird all the time. Like every time I watch
And now weird's the normal.
Weird
and
is the normal, but like, do you ever think, had I not been born, how boring would everything be right now? You know? Which I give it up for Dave, guys. Come on.
Yeah.
He got rid of punchlines. Who needs them?
Because I couldn't write them. Yes.
Hey, is there an episode or scene or just delivery that you're most proud of your work on?
This is a great question to end on. So, and I know there's a long line, and just so you know, everyone will be at their booths, so any burning questions you can ask at their booths, but we got 3 minutes left.
I'll go first.
So this is the final question.
There is an episode that I'm most proud of. It's called Super Birthday Snake. Meatwad wants a pet, but instead of a fluffy bunny, no thanks to Shake, he gets a snake. Names of Nathan Scott Phillips, staples its ears to his head. It's gonna hurt once, but damn is it gonna hurt. Frylock blows him all to hell. He swallows Shake, and Meatwad gets all pimped out, kills Carl Terminator style. Picks up the phone and says, bring over a couple of bitches before I put a cigarette out in your damn eye. How could that not be my favorite episode? I mean, come on. Anyway.
My favorite episode is the movie. I mean, I was thinking it was going to be like the time when all the villains got together and had a meeting, and Dave was like, you're on mushrooms all the time. That's why you think what you think, and that's why you are the way you are. And this was like almost a weird epiphany to happen. It was almost not in character to have a reason for why I would act the way I did. But in the movie, it was like, that was like the coolest thing that's ever happened to me in my life, that I got to be in a movie. And I remember when I saw it at the Plaza in, is it called the Plaza in Atlanta?
Yeah, still the Plaza.
And And just like the scene, we go down into hell, and everybody starts cheering because they know because they hear my music, but everyone in the audience started cheering, and it was just this amazing feeling of being in a movie. I remember I was on tour when the movie came out, and I saw it in Tampa with a bunch of fans, and we all went to it after a concert, and I went around the entire theater, and I gave everybody some Reese's Pieces. But I remember recording that episode and with Dave and Matt. It was like one of the last things I recorded. And actually, I think I was on tour, and I was able to make a stop in Atlanta while I was doing a show, and I got to go in and record with them, and they had me eat shit. Literally, I had to, the instructions were to eat shit. Perform the line as if you have a mouthful of shit in your mouth. And what I did is I ate...
Technically, you were a dung fly, though. I mean, you should say that.
It's true. I was reincarnated as a fly, but it was a fly who was eating shit at the time. And I had put a couple caramels, if you want a behind-the-scenes hack on how to sound like you're eating shit. Oh. I put a couple caramels in my mouth, chewed on the caramels while I said the line. I'm like, man, these are some good dog turds, man. And, but I remember that whole experience being amazing, being able to go see that with fans or even go see it in Atlanta with coworkers. Both those experiences were as good as it gets. Thank you for that experience, Dave.
And we're at time, so Dave, you're going to take us out with your answer.
All right, I'll keep it pretty quick, but I mean, the movie was cool. I wish it were better, but I do remember that night going to a bunch of different theaters, especially the first one, and I saw an elderly couple get up very quickly, hustle out of there as quick as they could. They're like, this isn't Howard's End. I don't know. I don't know that I have a favorite episode, but I do love that there's an episode where Shake and Carl are trying to marry the same Russian bride and split the money and split it, and they're trying to marry her through the door, and they're reading off the vows, and Shake can't pronounce Carl's last name, and Carl's like, just say Smith or Jones, it don't matter. And then I was like, it don't matter, none of this matters. And people come, that's the line that sticks with me. Everyone comes up and it's like, it don't matter, none of this matters.
That's a huge meme now, that line.
Well, I think of
it don't matter, none of this matters.
It's like some existentialist battle cry or something. I don't know why that line sticks out for Carl, but it does, and I love it. I love it.
That's amazing. Everyone, give it up for Carey Means, MC Chris, Dave Willis, Aqua Teen